is always keen to remind me that no, we don't say it like that. Yet she speaks Amharic.
I do. And it's important for people to understand, rather to know how we pronounce our capital city here in Botswana.
Yeah, I think some of us, we're accused to have eaten a lot of potatoes and cabbage. So it doesn't matter how we try. Some pronunciations won't come through. They won't come right. So yes, happy to see you all, our dear listeners. Please join us, Tell us where you're joining us from. Which city are you in? Which village? What exactly happens in your city on a Sunday? What do you do? Would you love to join us? Would you like to come to the studio at some point? Not if the conversation gets really exciting. So at some point you just go like, I want to join them. But if you can't join us in the studio, please drop comments, whichever platforms you are on. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn. We're just about to get on TikTok. And some people don't want us to get on X. I'll avoid politics. But you can see us loud and clear and hear us. We are on several platforms on YouTube. I think today we are on 17 plus platforms. And yes, Miss Kim here, your usual podcast host on the Happiness Tribe, a tribe that is so much focused on the very thing we talk about, the spirit of Ubuntu, coming together, breaking the chains that we've always had, getting to know each other, discussing, seeing where we can help each other, and as we help ourselves. Actually, when I was preparing for this podcast, it just hit me, this is my personal self-development journey. Yeah, it just hit me like, I come here to teach, but I learn more. Because you research on a topic, then you have a conversation with people, and you get a different perspective, which is so beautiful. So beautiful. So we want to kill this thing of the brains, the intelligence of this world is in the graves. We want to empty it right here, right now. So yes, a beautiful, beautiful podcast today. I'm just going to pass on the mic because the official moderator for today, I'm sure she'd love to introduce the topic and tell us much more why she chose that topic and what we need to learn from this. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. I think before I get started, may I ask Dr. Gladys to kindly say hello and introduce herself to our listeners?
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Gladys Spalding. I'm really happy to be here and excited about this topic, procrastination, because I really truly believe that everyone procrastinates at some point. You may not consider yourself a procrastinator, and you may not be. However, I think it's just a normal part, of living. And I just want to say that, I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, and it is hot. They call it hot Atlanta, and there's a reason for it. It is super hot. I mean, so a lot of people are hibernating because, you can end up with a heat stroke or something. So yeah, so welcome to the show, and I'm looking forward to, I hope some people will share, in the comments in the chat area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gladys. And yes, it's very nice to be here once again. We're here every Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock Botswana time, and very excited to share the different subjects that we want to explore and hoping to plant a seed or two with our listeners. And as Ms. Kim said, to inspire others through our experiences and just the conversations that we have. I enjoy coming here every Sunday. And today, my name is Yodit Mudusi, and I'm sitting in the beautiful city of Gaborone. Most folks like to say Gaborone. It is not Gaborone. It is Gaborone. It's not difficult to pronounce at all. Where it is still a little bit cold. And yeah, hopefully, I'm sure soon, though, Dr. Gladys will be joining you and talking about how super hot it is in this city, because it does get quite hot. Today, we're talking about procrastination, and this is one of a series of conversations that we will be having. We've already had 3, I believe, over the past 3 weeks, where we've talked about the lack of clarity. I think that was last week, and confusion. Before that, we talked about the fear of failure. And I remember that was quite an interesting conversation that we had. And then the very first one in this series was called self-doubt, where we discussed issues of insecurity, etc. The idea behind these subjects is to help to inspire folks out there who are facing challenges, different challenges, as they try to improve, their situation in life, whether it's their career or their business, trying to look at some of these things that come, as a daily issue that we deal with, some more than others. And this subject of procrastination is a very interesting one. And I must admit, the more about it, the more intrigued I became, because it's not what I thought it was. It can actually be quite a serious issue. So it's not just a matter of, gosh, I'm going to put this off, I'll do it tomorrow. There's actually some serious consequences for people who procrastinate consistently. And so those are the things that we want to unpack today. But obviously, as much as we want to talk about what it is, we also want to talk about how do we deal with it. What are some of the ways in which you can manage your procrastination, and how can we help you come out of that? Like Dr. Gladys said, all of us procrastinate, but with some, it's more pronounced. It becomes a behavior that they cannot get rid of easily. And I read in some of the articles that I read that there are people who actually ended up shortening their lifespan because procrastination led to severe depression and severe illness. So let's not get there. Let's try and manage it before it becomes a serious problem. So if I may start the conversation, and I'm going to say we had a question that was posed to us last week by one of our listeners. I'd like to come back to that at some point. So in case I forget, I'd like to ask my sisters in the room to please remind me to go back to that so we can look at it. And if our guest who posed the question is back, perhaps, I don't know, Ms. Kim, if there's a way to bring her into studio, but it would be so nice to have a conversation with her, because she was bringing in the cultural element, if there is one, on procrastination. So let's try and look at this question. What is it? What is procrastination, and how do you define it? Ms. Kim, if I may start with you.
Thank you, Ms. Judith. And this is it's actually, things that like I started with this podcast has become my personal journey. When I started researching on these, it dawned on me, actually, procrastination is not what I think it is. I think it's tied up to mean something different. I've always thought that procrastination is what I think a lot of us do, where we always, sometimes I'll associate it with laziness. I'll associate it to just avoiding doing something until it hits me. No, this is deeper than that. So how I've analyzed it and looked at it, it's actually not laziness. I would call it fear wrapped in logic. When emotionally there's something that's stopping you from doing it. Sometimes it may sound like you need more time. You need to be better prepared. Just fix one more thing before you start. I hope my sister is listening, because I borrowed this from her. She's always said, please, my dear friends, don't laugh at me, because my kids have been making fun of my phrases. I love phrases, but they never come out right. So I even panic when I want to use them. This and too much analysis creates paralysis. So I would look at it when we keep on pushing something. We are waiting for the perfect moment. Our vision slowly starts to fade. Our gift, or what specifically we want to do, gets dusty. The comfort that we are trading when we're doing that. So you already find it's something, sometimes you are so clear, you knew what you wanted to do, but there's that emotional shield. So some sort of vulnerability that comes. There's that delayed in acting, because sometimes we fear judgment, we fear failure. And the truth is, we may not feel good enough sometimes to begin something. So I would sum up procrastination as it's not the enemy, it's a messenger. It's something that says something inside me does not feel safe to move forward. And once I begin listening to it, instead of fighting it, it's one of those things that I'm scared of. I've started just calling them for meetings. Let's sit here. Let's look at the pros and cons. Why am I scared of this? So it's not, I wouldn't call it anymore laziness, like what I thought it is. Sometimes it's wrapped in emotional trauma, things that maybe I failed at something before, and I no longer have the courage to do that. So I've stopped this thing of beating myself up. What's wrong with you? Why can't you succeed? Why can't you just get up and do it? And confront what's deeper and much more working on my intuition. Because procrastination could be leading me to, no, it wasn't the right thing for you to do. So it's not essentially a bad thing. I hope that answers. And I wouldn't answer, I know you're speaking to a scientist. Please allow the scientist to answer scientifically. And I do the street thing.
you know, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was listening to what you say, because there are various facets to procrastination. And, basically when you delay or you post factors, for example, if I discuss it from an educational perspective, I find that procrastination has to do with poor time management skills. And I've seen it over and over again, because people are filling up their plates and they don't know how to create a schedule to determine, okay, I'm going to put this amount of time here. I have to work at this time. They don't have any idea. They don't give themselves realistic expectations. And what it is that the fact that they don't do that could, they didn't do the work, right? And because you didn't carve out the time and create a schedule and be realistic about it, and then you take an exam or something, or you didn't do the assignment and you do poorly, you get a 0 for not doing the assignment, or if you take the exam, you fail the exam. So that could lead to low self-confidence. And that's all hinged on the fact that you have procrastinated, and then you didn't create this schedule. So that was poor time management. And then now you're experiencing this emotional component, which is the low self-esteem. So various facets, because when you look at that particular scenario that I just told you about, initially they're probably feeling overwhelmed because you're working. If you're working, because I've had students who signed up for a class and they have, I don't know if their work schedule changed. I don't know. But the regardless of whether their schedule changed, the college schedule did not change. So now at that point, they're feeling overwhelmed. And then that's what's going to lead to the fact that they have poor time management, paired. So you're dealing with all of those different factors. So yeah, it's not just one thing. And, and it's not always, I don't want to say that it's always the individual's fault, but I can't look at it from a psychological perspective. I have to go with what's in front of me. Can you imagine having hundreds of students and then you're looking at all of these different personalities and situations? That's going to drive me crazy. So I can only go with help students with, learning how to manage their time. I even introduced that initially, the first week of the semester. I tell them, make sure you can manage your time. Let me tell you something. A lot of them are not even taking advantage of the technology. Okay, you have a calendar on your cell phone. Okay, so you can put your schedule there. They're not taking the time to do that, So I'm just saying there's numerous factors, like Miss Kim said, that could lead to procrastination. It's not always procrastinate, but it's just that when it becomes to the point, like I think the scenario I just told you about, that could really be tough, because if you feel like you're a failure and if it's going to affect your GPA or something, you could possibly say, well, I'm just going to drop out. So then that could lead to depression. You see, because the whole idea of going into any type of course is to advance yourself, is to upskill. right? So that means that you're not on the pathway to achieving your goals if you leave, if you drop out or something. So those agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kim and Dr. Gladys. And absolutely, I think both of you have covered some of the key elements of what procrastination is. And as I said in the beginning, for me, initially it was just, putting things off for different reasons, mainly because I'd rather not do it now and do it later, and which could be attributed to laziness, but things that I would later regret. And so I'll give you a very specific example. Failing to go and purchase, knowing that I should do it today, and then not doing it because I should do it. And then the next morning finding out that there's actually been an increase in petrol prices. And that's happened to me a couple of times. And it drives me nuts. And it reminds me about what my mom always used to say, never leave for tomorrow what you can get done today. Very simple. And it's something that now I try to live by, but it can be difficult. So now that's on a very the simpler side of what procrastination is and what it can lead to. So paying extra nowadays, it's not a very nice thing to experience, simply because we're all feeling what's happening in the economy. And then, of course, there's the more serious side of it. Saying you're going to do something and putting it off for a few months, and then having to. So I'll give you an example. Saying I'm going to go and visit this person. I'm going to visit. I'm going to visit. Keep putting it off, and then next thing you know, that person has passed away. There's nothing that's going to bring them back. And so things like that, where the repercussion becomes something that's so big, you don't even know how to deal with it, it becomes an issue. So the question is, how do you avoid making that a habit? Let me stop for a minute because I see our young brother Selassie has joined us. Hi, Selassie.
Hi, can you hear me?
It's good to have you with us this afternoon. Can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Can you hear me?
We
Hello?
can hear you, but there's a sound. I'm not sure what it is. Okay, now it's gone. Please introduce yourself, Selassie.
Yeah, I saw that. His internet is bad.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully he'll come back and join us. That was our one of the members of the Happiness Tribe, Selassie, who sits in Ghana. Hopefully he'll come back and give us a very different perspective. I suspect men view this a little bit differently from women, even though there is a science now, from what I've read. There are scientific reasons, possibly, or things that happen when we procrastinate. So one of the things that I read is that when you are tasked with doing something. Okay, he's back. Should we try it again, Selassie?
Yes. Please, can you hear me?
We can hear you. There's a bit of a sound, but we can hear you. Maybe increase your volume a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear me? Or is still okay?
We can hear you. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
See from Ghana, and today in Ghana means very cold over here today. Change because of the climate change. Anytime. Happy to join the happiness. Our session today. I'm Selassie from Ghana, and a proud member of the Happiness Tribe. And I'm here, to share my views on today's, topic, which is about procrastination. And I'm looking forward, to have a reflection that we post today.
Thank you, Selassie. There's still a bit of background noise. I'm not sure what it is, but hopefully it'll clear up as we continue with our conversation. You've mentioned something that is so critical, and I thought of it this afternoon as I was thinking about procrastination and some of the negative consequences. And one of the things I thought about, Selassie mentioned, the changing weather patterns. and climate change. I think if there's one thing that mankind or human, well, no, let me leave it at mankind, has procrastinated about is our impact, our impact as human beings on the environment and how that's going to adversely affect future generations. So that's like on the very serious side of it. If there's such a thing called group procrastination, I don't know, I didn't read that far, but I think it is a very serious issue, in terms of what is it that we're not willing to address, or something that we're not willing to deal with, maybe out of fear, we don't know what's coming, but in some instances is because we really don't care. So back to procrastination and what we were talking about, I was beginning to say that one of the things that I read is that when you are faced with completing a task, and for example, if you're a student at university, like Dr. Gladys, your students, and they're expected to study for a specific exam, some students will put off the studying. They'll find other things to do. They will go and clean their room. They'll be very productive in everything else except studying for that subject, for that exam. And some of the researchers have said that, as they're looking at this issue, what they realized is that there is an overwhelming fear that these students face. And so it's easier not to even start, because I guess, and I think you mentioned it, Dr. Gladys, as well as Miss Kim, the fear of not doing well, the fear of failure, something that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. In some instances, also the fear of being judged. You will not sit down and do this task because you feel that you're not going to do a very good job. You're going to be, judged. So as a result, you keep putting it off, but putting it off becomes detrimental. You go in and you take the exam and you fail. And so the one example that I read about, which was really quite scary, is this gentleman who had such a big problem with procrastination in the workplace. He kept putting off, work that he was supposed to do. He kept missing deadlines, and as a result, kept losing his job. And of course, that has a negative impact on the income that he's able to bring home. And eventually, he passed. I think he developed chronic disease, and so he was not able to live for very long. And so that is like the most drastic side of what procrastination can do. But if I may now take an opportunity, and I'll start with Selassie because he's just joined us, to give us your views on procrastination, and perhaps an example of a situation that you may have been faced with, or a situation that you know of somebody who was procrastinating and it didn't end up well. Selassie? You're still on mute.
Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you, but there's a background sound. I don't know if it's just me. Kim, Dr. Gladys, can you hear Selassie clearly? Okay, go ahead, Selassie.
Yeah, I can.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the question. I think procrastination simply means delaying decisions for now, probably which might lead to certain negative consequences in the future. And with my current work, there's no need for you to procrastinate because it's a disaster management organization, and any procrastination you make, can cost a lot. So, report needs to get on time so that stakeholders will take decisions. And so, with my current organization, the disaster experts, there is no need for me to procrastinate. So, sometimes I can be at work, close very late because things need to get done. But previously, I've found myself procrastinating on how to present. When I was at the university, and that time, I think my first time presenting to my class and a panel of bodies on campus, I was unable to make my presentation because as soon as I saw crowd, I really feared and I couldn't present. So I got sick. Immediately, and instead of me to learn, to present, I procrastinated and I didn't do any effort to learn about, how to make good presentation, present to the class. And anytime, thereafter, anytime there's presentation, sometimes I do fall sick. Send a meeting letter. I'm not really feeling well or something like that, which is really bad. This has really caught up with me, that it's really affected me in my later studies. And I think it's something I need to really work on. So I think that's one thing. But with my current work, that's why you can't really procrastinate. This is because any decisions you take, you know you are going to cost life. Maybe reporting to go to the fire service so that they could, take action. So that probably we couldn't have fire disaster within a community. If you don't take those decisions, you can really create chaos in the society. So, I feel with my current work, there's no need for me to procrastinate. So I will try to do my best to really, do whatever I actually do. But previously, I've had this experience which was really causing me, my presence.
Thank you, Tinashe. I think if I may just summarize very quickly. I don't know if you were able to hear that. Miss Kim and Dr. Gladys, were you able to hear what Selassie was talking about? But okay, so Selassie was mentioning, his life as a student and how he was fearful, especially of doing presentations. And so because he was fearful, he was unable to present. And he mentioned that, due to procrastination, he didn't attend sessions that would help him overcome the fear for presentations. And it wasn't a good thing for him at the time as a student. But now in the working world, he's unable to, he doesn't procrastinate. It's impossible because of the consequences. Procrastination could lead to things that are quite severe for people who depend on him. And I guess the department where he works with. So he does not procrastinate anymore. So I think if you can just pick up on that, if I may, Dr. Gladys, you are working in an environment with students, and I'm sure you've already mentioned that it's something that you see. What are some of the things that young people can do in terms of seeking support if they're experiencing such issues with, fear? Because it seems like from what Selassie has said and from what both you and Ms. Kim mentioned, fear is one of the reasons why people procrastinate. They can't get on with it because they're scared of what's going to happen when they do. Can I please ask you to speak to, what are some of the things, solutions that are open, available, support systems for students who struggle with such?
Okay. Yeah. See, so now another thing is I want to say that a lot of my students. Oh, hello.
I'm still here. You can't see me, but
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't
Yeah.
know
Okay.
what.
You can hear me. I don't know what happened, but
No, we just want you to shine.
Okay. Right. Okay. So one of the things I definitely recommend, like I said, is scheduling, time. That's one thing. Like I said, there's a course that's usually available, but I work with some of the obligations, whether it be children, whether it be working. So, when you look at the big picture, of course you have to live, you got to pay your rent and everything. So a large majority of them, that's who I deal with, non-traditional students, but I do have, first time students as well, so the main thing I find is that people need to schedule their time. I think that's really important. And I think it has to be realistic. And when I say that, let's say, for example, if you're not really accustomed to having good time management, just say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on this particular topic that I really just don't understand. You have to start with small chunks. You can't overwhelm yourself with, doing a task for like 2 hours, because your attention is not going to be there. And you may not even have the time to do it because you may have other obligations. Another thing I tell them, let's say if you have children, don't compete with your children. Okay. If you are at home, you're cooking dinner or something like that, give your children that undivided. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but children are children. So I say, You know, you schedule your time. You can do it in increments. It doesn't have to be everything done at one time. I mean, even if your children are involved in some type of activity, you can take that information with you. You have tablets or whatever that is, technology, and you can look over that information while you're there. A lot of people just don't even realize, they don't know how to use their time. You do have free time, and you can use, even if it's 15 minutes, just to make a difference. And that's what I'm finding, you know, that they really have a problem scheduling, you know, their time and being able to divide it up, because the time is there somewhere. Nobody's working 24 hours. I mean, your body probably wouldn't even allow you to do that. I mean, at some point it's going to require, you know, sleep or whatever that is. So that is another thing. So really breaking it down into to chunks. And then you also have to know your why. What is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Because I find that, believe it or not, even though people are enrolling themselves in programs, like, why am I doing this? You're doing this because you want to advance yourself. You want to elevate yourself. You're trying to, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a better job, whatever that is. So you need to know why you're doing it, and you need to stay on track and continue that trajectory, because it's going to lead you to success. And I've had these conversations with students. Some of them are ready to receive it, and you have those who are ready to go for it, and they try to figure it out. And then you have those who really, we're just not on the same frequency. They're just not in that place, because believe it or not, a lot of people, I'm in school, but they're not really there. And I mean, not just mentally, even physically, they don't show up. You see what I'm saying? So again, that is procrastination, because your goal for going to school, I'm thinking it was to advance yourself. So if you're not there, you know what I'm saying? So, and let me just say personally, you know, I don't consider myself to be, I'm not a habitual procrastinator, but I do procrastinate. I believe like what you do today, why would you postpone what you could do today for tomorrow? I truly believe that. And I'm gonna tell you why I think of it that way. What if my electricity goes out? That means I can't wash clothes. You understand? And those things have happened where if I had put something off, I didn't get it accomplished, but I could have done it. And then, you know, I tell my husband, no, let's take care of this now, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Now, I'm not perfect, because, you know, I've had a situation where, you know, I go for my annual physical and everything, and I haven't done it yet. And I'm gonna tell you, it's not that I'm fearful of going. I thought about it, and then all of a sudden there's a distraction that comes in. I'm doing something else, and now 2 months has gone by, and then, you know, oh, I thought about it again, and now I'm almost a year off. So I'm just saying, you know, and it's just that there were distractions. I'm working, and even though it's summertime, but it happens, you know. So I'm just saying. But those are definitely, you know, some of the things. And also write it in technology as a reminder on your cell phone, and it can alert you. You know, and I tell my students, you have it right there in your hand. Everybody's on a cell phone. Okay, so there's no excuse for you to be reminded. I put everything on the schedule on my cell phone so that I will remember. You see, so those are just some of the things. I hope that answered your question, that you can do to help ward off the procrastination.
Absolutely. Thank you, Miss Paula. Sorry, Miss Dr. Gladys, I'm missing Miss Paula. Miss Paula is also a member of the Happiness Tribe. For those of you who joined us previously, you would definitely know Miss Paula. But thank you, Dr. Gladys. Yes, greatly appreciate that. I think, Miss Kim, I'd like to ask you to comment as well, but maybe also comment on the issue of fear, you know, and the fact that sometimes we put something off because we're scared. We're scared of the consequences, or we're scared of being judged. I think that's what you had said.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, Dr. Gladys, when you're talking, you actually reminded me how I dread, don't tell anyone, I dread going for pap smears.
Is that on 17 platforms, you said, Miss Kim? Don't tell anyone.
Selassie is not here. He's not listening. And nobody else had that. But it's some of those things. And something else so silly. I do not like brushing my teeth. So I make sure it's the first thing I do in the morning to get done with it.
Miss Kim. Next time I'm sitting next to you when we do these podcasts, I'm going to be right there in your home. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I just don't like the feeling of the toothpaste. The whole thing is just so yucky. So it's the first thing that has to be done, and I'm done. It's ticked off. Now, on procrastination and fear, I think procrastination is generally a part of our lives, and we will always procrastinate. And I don't think it's a very bad thing until when it starts affecting our lives, like what Miss Judith said, like somebody ended up with his life gone. And it's I think borderline as managing those emotional trauma. Sometimes we don't even know. I have procrastinated a very personal responsibility that I pray my uncles and aunties in the village are not listening to this podcast. Because my mom passed on.
Is making a lot of confessions today, and Selassie, so we need to mind her today. Sorry, Miss Kim.
Listen, Selassie will gladly understand and forgive me for it. So my mom passed on within COVID. And of course, we were going through lockdowns. I could not go to bury my mom. But to the African tradition, the first thing, I mean, like generally on a normal day, if it wasn't for COVID, they would not bury my mom until I get home. So my sister in US, my brother, everybody goes home. Funerals are very, very traditional. It's part of our culture. There's a lot of it tied up to a send off that you have to be there. But I did everything I could that I feel I'm comfortable. Within me, I buried my mom virtually. I was very active. I did the program every day. I actually planned things. Maybe I actually worked harder than if I was home. And sometimes also it's our way of escaping the pain. So obviously I was a mess day one. From day two, I went like, no. Actually, the same evening I called a catering. We called with my sister. My sister was here then, my younger sister. So we organized a catering company to take food to my siblings who were there mourning because we knew they wouldn't cook. And started calling people like we do. So we planned the funeral. We arranged where they were gonna go do their hair, their clothes, everything. We did what we could. We worked extremely hard. And we attended the funeral virtually. But as expected, it's so many years later, I don't even want to say how many. I've not gone home. I fly through Nairobi because it's sort of a hub destination to many other places, but I have every reason not to leave the airport because I know the minute I leave the airport, the community will expect me to go and do the rightful thing. I don't think I'm ready. I don't know what emotional trauma is there. I had a very beautiful relationship with my mom. She was my best friend. We were very close. But I'm not ready to go to her graveyard. So sometimes procrastination can bring, there could be some fear that we don't even know what that is. Because why am I so scared of going to my mom's graveyard? She's gone. And every time I'm confronted with that, I just go like, no, my mom lives in my lounge. I have a beautiful picture of my mom. We talk every day and I see her. But I still feel some part of me goes like, you better face this because at some point you still have to do it. And if it's not for me, I'll need to take my kids who actually, thanks God, one of my daughters was there and she did everything. She was part of the funeral. But I have so many excuses. I can't leave the airport. I need to get to and I try to make sure that there will be family events, but I have a reason why I can't go. So sometimes it could be we don't know what we're confronting, but the earlier we seek healing, because if I'm scared, and since then I have had every excuse not to go to people's funerals. I actually went for the first funeral like a few months ago. I think I even called Miss Yodit when I was on my way, because that one as well, I had done everything possible not to go. And it's not because I knew the person we were burying, because it's very traditional. We go for funerals. It's like Saturday, it's a funeral day in Botswana. It doesn't matter who died, you're supposed to show up for funerals. So this was my friend's mom. I didn't know her mom. My friend is in the US, so I just felt the honorable thing to do is let me attend this funeral. So sometimes we have to confront our fears, which maybe that's where I might need to see a therapist and understand, how do I overcome this? Because am I going to miss my funeral? I need to show up for that one.
Miss Kim.
Okay. So there could be, and I know it's getting overrated, this thing of everything we brand it, it's trauma, it's trauma. I don't know what it is. And maybe I've not given it so much attention to understand what it is, but I feel I've sort of made peace with my mom's passing. I'm grateful. She left a big girl. We're all grown children, and she was suffering. So for me, I still go like, she's peaceful. She's not in pain. But that thing of, it could be just that, but you start with one thing and it leads to so many. And if you're not very careful, you could still keep on sugarcoating its trauma. I missed my class because I'm emotionally broken, because I didn't do my homework, because I was sick. And life is not giving us room for excuses. We're going to pick up the pieces. They actually say over 18, we can start saying our trauma, I was beaten, I was what? No, look for help. That's my story. No more stories.
Thank you, Ms. And thank you for sharing. You know, I think it is it's a very good example of fear. I think what you haven't done for yourself is to define what that fear is. You're not sure what it is. And I think my take on it, we've discussed it before. My take on it is, currently, I think it's okay. It's not preventing you from doing anything. You haven't done that one thing, but I suspect that day will come when you will go. You will go and you will do it. You will face whatever it is, whether it's fear, whatever it is that you are supposed to face, you will face it. But at this point in time, I think you are in an okay space. You know, you're okay. But it's a very good example. But I think we should never underestimate what trauma does, though, Miss Kim. As much as we want to, I can understand why you say we relate everything to trauma. I can't do this because I'm traumatized. I can't look for a new job because I'm still traumatized from being retrenched. But at the same time, it is trauma. And what people experience is something horrible that they do not want to experience again. So they avoid it. And anything that will remind them of that trauma, they will avoid. And so seeking help is something that's important. And sometimes, people think you have to go to a trained psychiatrist or psychologist, but there are times when you can go and have a conversation with someone who thinks deeply about things, someone who's had experience, somebody who's wise. I know that different churches all offer therapy. I know in university settings, you can go and approach different people to help you. But where I'm going with this is basically to say, where there is fear and where there is fear because of trauma, it's important to talk about it. I love the way you talk very openly about these things, Ms. Kim. And I think that in itself is healing. The fact that you're able to talk about it, you have started the journey of healing. Because a lot of times when people have gone through something traumatic, the easiest thing to do is to lock it away. But locking it away has, I believe, negative repercussions. My children accuse me of having road rage. When somebody irritates me on the road, I will let it out. Whatever it is that comes to my mouth, I try to manage it because I have kids in the car, but I let it out. And my kids are always like, you've got serious road rage, and you need to deal with it. And I say to them, okay, it can be unpleasant for them. And for that, I apologize to them. I don't want them to experience me in that way. However, I honestly believe that the fact that I'm able to let it out means that I'm not keeping it in my body. It doesn't become anger that later turns into ulcers or that turns into high blood pressure issues. I let it out. And once it's out, it's gone. So I refuse to allow it to impact me negatively. And I think people who are able to verbalize some of the issues that they're faced with, some of the traumatic things that they've experienced, I think they have an advantage over those who keep it away, who keep it locked up. So I don't know your views. Selassie, thank you for joining us again. I'm sorry that you're having problems with your internet today. And I'm not sure how much of our conversation you heard, but would you like to chip in and maybe give us your perspective on fear and procrastination? You spoke a little bit about it already, but what is it that you think, young people can do to address fear, and then that will help them address procrastination? Selassie? Is he frozen or is it me? You're all
Selassie, you need to unmute yourself.
I think he's frozen. Yeah, he's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone who wants to chip in on that one, I think, Dr. Gladys, what's your take on what Ms. Kim just shared with us?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. As even though I used a different example with the students and everything, but when I do agree, it could lead to fear. Like you said, if you're traumatized by, and that is going to cause you to procrastinate because you don't want to deal with that experience again. So I can definitely understand. I can't really think of any. I mean, I think we all have something that we have experienced and we just don't want to revisit it. So we will put it off. So that's another form, like you said, of procrastination. I was trying to think of an example that I had, but I truly can't think of it. Must be in the recesses of my head because we all experience something. And we all look at, trauma could be in different levels as well. So, some people could be more traumatized, it depends on, that degree as well. But I really can't think of an example where I was traumatized and I actually procrastinated. But, like I said, I have procrastinated about things. I'm still procrastinating. But for the most part, I don't consider myself to be a procrastinator because I really try to keep up with what I'm doing because I just don't like the feeling that you get when you're supposed to do something and it doesn't get done. And then it seems like, oh my gosh. And then that becomes overwhelming and that could lead to trauma as well. Because like you had mentioned, a person not doing what they're supposed to do on the job, and then you end up losing your job, So I try my best, but life throws so many different things at you. You really also have to prioritize and figure out, okay, which is more important. Okay. So, that's another thing. So I try to do that as well. But I can definitely understand, the fear. Nobody wants to fail, let's be for real. But you also learn through failing. Okay. Like I said, just like if you fail a class, you have to do something different. Okay. And to be honest with you, if you take the step to retake that course because you failed it, that is a good thing. That means you did not put it off. You're trying to overcome that trauma. The fact that you signed up again, the fact that you showed up again, and this time, hopefully, she's saying.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gladys. I think before I go on to unpacking procrastination a little bit more and looking at, what are some of the consequences, some of which we've already addressed, and then finally getting into, and we've already started talking about, what is it that you can do. Ms. Kim, do we have any messages that you would like to read out? And also, can you please kindly remind us of our sponsor for the show? I'd appreciate it because we haven't even mentioned them once, which is not a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a bit unfortunate. I'm not able to access messages. There could be something with my settings, but I'll check later. I'll also request our members of the Happiness Tribe that could be listening out there. Please, especially those who access us on WhatsApp, if Grace, you're online, or Selassie, please send us the messages. If you're not able to join us in the studio, you can WhatsApp us, then we can read out. But I just so you know, all our listeners, we appreciate you here, and we'll still come back and respond to your messages. And yes, thank you, Ms. Judith. A big shout out to the sponsor of this show, OneStream Live. So please note, we are out and grateful. We're very, very happy to be streaming. We have access to stream on 50 platforms. Currently, we're doing close to 20, and we're going to keep on increasing them. So this is pretty good. And this, what we're streaming right now, will stay live for the next 24/7, so you can still access us. So thank you, One Stream Live. You're a very good partner, and we appreciate the sponsorship of being able to access the studio, which is literally like a mini TV on its own. We're still navigating how well to utilize it, and we're going to get better with time. Thank you. And please know we're going to drop the link where you can join One Stream Live. We'll put it on our socials. Then you can experience this. We'll urge you to try it and experience. It's a beautiful platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Yes, we're very grateful. And as we are learning to navigate, we'll do better, like the sound effects, for example, something I still can't get used to. Dr. Gladys, do you have your hand up?
Actually, I do. I wanted to mention perfectionism, how that could also lead to procrastinating, because, a lot of times people are waiting for the perfect time. Let's say if they want to start a business, want it to be flawless. It just doesn't work like that. Sometimes you just have to do it. And then you learn through the actual process, just like me, I have the business beneath these now. I'm learning, and I'm so excited. I'm learning how to edit videos and stuff like that. And they're not perfect, but guess what? I did it. And I'm only going to get better through practice. So, and I am getting better. I see the difference from the first video. Now I have another video, and then it's just going to get better and better. So I just want to say, so there's never a perfect destination, because you're expecting it to be perfect. Because, you see other people out there and they're selling products, and let's say like big companies, let's say Macy's or whatever that is, they have the experience. They've been there for years. You know what I mean? So they're doing much better because they know the game. So you're actually, when you first start, you're learning the game. Just like I have a colleague, she said, she told me just a few days ago, I know nothing about business, and she wants to start her own business. So what she did was she enrolled in a great place to start. But for the longest, she did procrastinate because she just didn't know what to do. But yet she took the step and said, let me take a class just to get a foundation. And that's wonderful. As a matter of fact, that's perfect. That's what I say.
Can I mic on that?
Absolutely. Please go ahead, Ms.
I'm mic dropping on behalf of Dr. Gladys. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that there's fear, and there's also like one of my very close friends. She's very meticulous, so she can plan. She'll not launch a business until all the T's and the dots are picked. So I'm very disruptive. I can think about an idea, the next minute it's everywhere, even before it's nicely cooked. And of course, there are pros and cons. Sometimes I burn my fingers, but you never know until you try. And that sometimes is actually my research. I just get to know how many phone calls did I get. So are people interested in this or not? Just do it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you see Ms. Kim doing that, time and time again. And it's something that I've come to appreciate, the longer I hang out with her and learn from her, because I think I'm sitting on the other side. Not that it has to be perfect, but it has to be something before it's launched. You have to be able to prove something, show something. But now I understand from people who are entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs, it's like, no, just get it out there, learn what you can from it, and then you can perfect it as you go along. So it's something that, and again, it leads back to perfectionism. And thank you so much, Dr. Gladys, for bringing that up, because it can actually be debilitating, because you just don't want to make anything public before it's absolutely perfect. And there's no such thing as absolutely perfect. Well, maybe there are some things, but it's important for you to be able to try. So I'm on a journey of learning that it doesn't have to be the best. And perhaps it's also, for myself, it's unlearning the many, many years of working within a corporate environment where something that's released. Mind you, as much as we did make mistakes, but for the most part, I believe 95% of what is released for public consumption is as close to perfect as it'll get. So some of this unlearning that you have to do as you're embracing entrepreneurship is something that I'm on definitely. Thank you so much for mentioning that, Dr. Gladys. Okay, so I wanted to just quickly mention some of the things, and I believe we've already mentioned, both Ms. Kim and Dr. Gladys have mentioned, what are some of the consequences of procrastination. So, and this one I think will speak volumes for entrepreneurs as well. Those who look for, opportunities to submit proposals or complete tender documents to be able to win certain jobs. Procrastination is something that will kill you if it's a habit, because you fail to submit something on time, and that's it. You've missed the deadline. There's no coming back unless they go back and advertise it again. So lost opportunities is something that's a serious consequence of procrastination. And I described a situation with a gentleman who kept missing deadlines and therefore kept losing his job. So it can also be lost opportunities within a working environment as somebody who's employed. We've talked about increased stress and how procrastination actually doesn't help. And it doesn't matter how much you clean your apartment or your house in effort in order to avoid something that you really don't want to do. The stress will give you insomnia. The stress will give you high blood pressure. The stress will then lead to things that you really don't want in your life. Unfulfilled potential. And I think this one is a big one for me. And it goes back to the conversation we just had. Be comfortable with releasing something that may not be perfect. And as you work on it, you will be able to improve on it and slowly reach the potential, fulfill that potential. And then I spoke earlier about death and how there's nothing worse than encountering death. You meant to visit this person and this person goes. You can't bring that back. So it's mentioned here as irreversible loss. And this is some of the research that I did earlier as I was looking at what procrastination is. I don't know if Dr. Gladys, Miss Kim, you have any comments that you'd like to make here, some of the consequences or repercussions of procrastination that we haven't mentioned already. Please feel free.
I just want to mention something, about fear of judgment. Like, a lot of times, I know I've been in situations like I've mentioned in the past or on some of the podcasts where, I was trying to implement something that was very innovative and now it's like, really popular. And I think that a lot of times that's why people procrastinate, because it's not easy putting yourself out there, and especially among your colleagues, because you don't want to seem like you don't know what you're talking about or you don't know what you're doing, and a lot of times, especially in the science field, a lot of those people who people looked at as mad scientists or crazy or whatever, they actually created, very innovative products and stuff like that. But that could be even within my classroom. You have students who don't want to ask questions and look at it from the perspective you're coming in here and you don't know. And there may be some that do know, because I get an array of students. There are some in there who are married to doctors or whatever that is. But however, I teach on the level that I'm assuming you don't know. And I always encourage them to ask questions, because I can understand, you don't want to be perceived in that way. But if you don't know, you don't know. And I think a lot of times by engaging them, and when they ask those questions, believe it or not, there's probably somebody else in there who wants to ask the same question, so I always say no question is stupid, and I really mean it better. And I truly believe that. So I do believe that also leads to procrastination, because you really, you just don't want to be called out or appear to be, stupid or something like that. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Dr. Gladys. And what's coming through, excuse me, very strongly is that, start taking those steps. So take the first step and build incrementally, if that's the right word, the right English. So to your colleague or your friend who started taking a course on business because she doesn't want to not do anything at all, she wants to get started. So she's starting by learning. So it's always important to take that first step. And I think, sometimes I find myself in that situation where taking that very first step takes forever. But once I get there and once I start, then I can get going. It's a steady pace. So how do you avoid that? And I think especially for our young people, in this day, Miss Kim always reminds us about how unemployment is becoming a serious issue, everywhere. It's not just in Botswana. We have a serious challenge when it comes to young people. The number of young people who are completing their bachelor's degree, some master's degrees, and still are unable to get work. So they cannot afford to procrastinate at all. They have to get going with something, but then it becomes so difficult. Some of the things that we expect them to have, they don't. They don't know how to sit through an interview because nobody's bothered to show them. Nobody's thought it's important. Or they'll show up at work, they'll get a job, but because they don't know how to behave in a work environment, they lose that job. So there's so many things that are stacked up against our young people today. Procrastination cannot be one of those things that they can afford to do. And so, to all the young listeners out there, whatever it is that you need to do to take the first step towards, that vision that you have for yourself, your life, and your future, please make sure that you take that first step. Okay, so we've got about 25 minutes left. We've already started talking about some of the solutions. What are some of the things that you can do? Taking the first step is something that we just spoke about. Dr. Gladys has elaborated on it. So has Ms. Kim. Facing your fears, is, and I'm not sure. I don't know if we've explored it enough. I don't know if you can ever explore facing your fears enough. But maybe from your experiences, both of you, what are some of the things that you have done to face your fears? Maybe a practical example of a situation that you've had and what you've done to face the fear. And did it help? Did it work? Whoever wants to jump in first, please do.
It's going to wing it.
Please wing it, Ms. Kim.
So I think it's nice. It's important for us to acknowledge that sometimes it's actually very healthy to have that that fear, that thought. But then what is not healthy is if we make it chronic, that constantly I have a reason why things can't get done. And some of the things I've done for me to face my fears and much more to procrastinate, to drop procrastination, I make sure I have an accountability partner, always, especially on a project. She's very happy because she likes beating me at it.
That's not true, Miss Kim.
So, and when I'm going through it, because there are times that you're really, really going through it, I make sure that I'm gentle with myself and I just ensure that at least 5 things maximum that I can get ticked that day. And those 5 things can even be as little as calling one client, having a meeting with my team, reading a chapter that I've said every day I'm going to read, sitting and cooking for my children. I still count it as something I managed to do, especially when I feel sometimes, I mean, it's normal, it's life. There are moments that you're just literally feeling the weight of this world on your shoulders and you just don't want to wake up. And those are the moments that I also, to face my fears, I also try to do things that I love. That's when I say, we're going to be very nice to Miss Kim today. She likes planting plants. She likes gardening. She likes hanging out with her dogs. Can she just be allowed to be her and hang out with her dogs? She likes going for her long walks. She has a few bad habits. If she wants to take her glass of wine. I forgot we are 17 platforms. So I think
it's not a bad habit, Miss Kim. I think have your glass of wine and hang out with your dogs.
So and just being me, just trying, because sometimes some of the pressure we put on ourselves can be overwhelming. And if there's something, and I feel sometimes it comes with age, wisdom, learning to be gentle with ourselves, learning to be more kind to ourselves. I'm trying very much to guard my peace, to guard my mental health. It's not an excuse for me to say this has to be kept aside and I have to wait until I'm okay for this to be done, because the world is not going to stop. Just because I'm bleeding, the world will not stop. The world moves on. I just need to be able to make sure that I do me. And then, of course, making sure that I'm constantly looking at who am I surrounding myself with. I still strongly believe you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And can I be honest? Sometimes can I be vulnerable in front of them? Can I pick a call and tell them I'm going through it? That project we're supposed to submit, I need a break. And get somebody who is going to be gentle and go like, just write 2 pages today. It's okay. I'll take a break, but let's do it tomorrow. Let's just make sure it gets done. You know, putting those deadlines. As somebody who loves tech as well, tech helps me a lot. It keeps me in check. So I use a lot of tools, and I make sure even the team uses tools. Like right now, for those who don't want to use big platforms, we have so many little apps. AI has given birth to so many things like Notion. It is such a nice app that makes you keep organized. You're checking on your work. Of course, I love using project management systems that keep on reminding me, this is what you are supposed to do this week. Look at what boxes you've ticked. And all the A's is still lagging behind. And then, of course, I have my mantras. If it has to be, it's up to me. So I have to keep reminding myself, you can bury your head under the sand, but it's still going to come out. And you're going to burn yourself the more you keep on sweeping things under the carpet. So face your fears. Thank you. That was my winging it. I'm going to research better on that topic next time.
No, but it was a fantastic response, Ms. Kim. I think you gave us, and I'm busy writing it down, a bunch of tools that we can use to help ourselves from procrastinating. And, being kind to yourself is definitely one of them. It's out there in the research when you do the research on procrastination and how to deal with it. Thank you, Ms. Kim. Dr. Gladys?
How I face my fears is, believe it or not, I try to prepare myself. Like I actually, from being a lab supervisor and going into faculty, the way they did the interviews, it was open to the entire college. So there was a link sent out. So that means that I was being, whoever was going to be in attendance could have been anybody, within the university, and I thought about it. That's fearful in itself, because like I said, you have numerous people who can judge you. And then furthermore, while I did my presentation, because I had to do a presentation, they had an opportunity to fill out a survey about you. But you know what? If I want to elevate and move to the next level, I had to plunge in there. I had to believe in myself. So that meant that I had to prepare myself. And so what I did was my research, because we were given an opportunity to select from, I think like a bevy of topics. I selected one of the topics, and do you know how, and then you know what? Then they had an opportunity to ask you questions. I mean, and that was very difficult. But you know what? If I knew in my mind, I had to put myself out there. It didn't mean that I was going to get it, but if I didn't at least put myself out there, that already was failure. That was failure because I didn't try. So what I try to do, and I've been in situations where people have called me to the forefront to respond to something, and I was like, I wasn't prepared for it, but I had to do something. And it may not have always come out the best, because it wasn't going to be perfect because I wasn't prepared. But I just showed up and I just did it. And I think that's what made the difference. Back at it, I'm really proud of myself for putting myself out there. It may not have been the best, but at least I tried. So that's what has been my experience when I've wanted to do something, even though I was fearful. I would just plunge in there. I would just do it. And regardless of what the repercussions were, as far as like whether they liked it or they didn't, it ends up working out for moving into, to faculty. I ended up, getting it, even though I was judged by all these colleagues and everything, my presentation was really great. And that was because I prepared for it. I did my research, and, so yeah, so that's what I do. I just, I just take a chance and I just do it. And it doesn't always work out, but you don't know unless you try. And that's what I really pride myself on, is that I try. You'll find that a lot of people talk about it, but there's no action behind it. So it really doesn't, I mean, the idea has to start somewhere, but you got to move forward. And it could be the small in the course. That is a huge start. You know, just I'll give you another example. There could be, we had a situation at a gym where someone was telling me that an obese woman came in, and then they felt like the instructor didn't really, do well. It wasn't the best vibe or something like that. So we both were saying, do you know what it took for that individual to come out of their house and actually go to the gym? That is a big start right there for her to get in her car, and that is a start. So I'm just saying, if you can start, it's unfortunate that you have people, like I said, I've had that situation where somebody didn't like my idea, but you got to believe in yourself and keep going. When you're talking about fitness, you know that by you reducing your weight and doing the same thing and eating properly, that's going to lead to better health. So you have to overlook those things, because there's going to be naysayers. They're there. However, you have to be strong enough mentally to continue, because you have to see the big picture. This is your vision, not anyone else's, to work for you. And like I said, in small chunks. The fact that that person got out of their bed, got dressed, went to that parking lot, came into that classroom to exercise because she knew she wanted to lose weight, that was huge. That's huge. You know, so I'm just saying, things like that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love it. I think you talked about taking the first step, plunging in. Some would say jumping in the deep end, but obviously, you know how you have to know how to swim. But believe in yourself. I think that's fundamental. And especially for, our young people, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in your vision and that you have what it takes. And if you may not have everything, but you have something, and I believe everybody has something. So you have to be able to take the first step. And within that, one of the things that we always talk about at the Happiness Tribe is community, building a community of people who can support you in what you're doing. And as you were both talking, one of the things that, again, it's so important, and we go back and talk about it. We are a community as the Happiness Tribe. We sit in different countries. Miss Kim and I are very blessed to have one another. We're sitting right next to each other here in Gaborone. Okay, we need to see each other physically more, but anyways, at least we're in the same town. And, we're blessed. We can bounce ideas off of one another within our meetings, within our chat group. And then when we come here to the Happiness Tribe, where we present ourselves to everybody who's willing to join the podcast, it's another opportunity to grow and learn from our different experiences, because we don't have time to talk about all of it during our meetings. So build your community, and it doesn't have to be people who are far away. Although one of the things that Miss Kim always reminds me about is the community that is linked in, and the people who are available, whether it's professionally, those who are in your profession, or those who are just simply people who care about human beings and want to extend assistance where they can. So remember that you can build yourself a community of people who are going to be your cheerleaders, people who are going to hold you by your hand, who will give you a hug when you need a hug. But these are the things that are important. So far we've said, be kind to yourself, take the first step and plunge in. You have absolutely nothing to lose. And if you feel like you do, maybe take a step back and look at it again and say, okay, what is it that I'm worried about? What is it that could possibly go wrong? And then believe in yourself, and one of the ways that you can confirm to yourself that you are okay is, the self-talk that you do. And once in a while, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, Aizosh, in Amharic, Aizosh means it's okay, it'll be okay. Don't hang in there. It can mean a lot of things, but Aizosh is something that I like to say to myself when the tough gets going, and, I have to do that self-talk. Remind yourself that it'll be okay. And I think that's important as well. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of things. I don't know if there's anything else in terms of solutions. One of the things that we talked about earlier is breaking tasks into smaller task or smaller sizes. Don't take on something that's huge. If it's too big for you, break it down. And what becomes important here is your use of either your cell phone. Nowadays we have so many different things that we can write on. You can write on your phone. I have a little notebook that's next to me on my bedside table, so if my phone is not there, I reach and I make a note for myself. It also helps as you grow older. We tend to forget things, although my young daughter tells me she's forgetful. I don't know why. Write things down. Take time to pull things apart for yourself. I think it's so important. Somebody mentioned journaling earlier. Journal, write your things down, and nobody has to see it. Go back and unpack it, revisit it the next day or the following week. So there are many different things that you can do to overcome procrastination. I love Miss Kim's suggestion. Project management. You always think that those tools are only available or only work for work related things. But why not use it for things that are personal, to help you remember the things that you're supposed to do? Because sometimes people do forget. It's actually a serious problem, especially for those of us who are experiencing menopause or andropause. A reminder that men also have their version of menopause, which is called andropause. Okay, let me pause there for a minute and just ask if there's anything else that you would like to throw in here, Ms. Kim or Dr. Gladys. We're talking about the solutions that are available to us to overcome procrastination and some of the things that are associated with procrastination, fear being the biggest one, trauma being another one. Anything else that I may have missed out or
I
you'd
do
like
want to say, yeah, if you mess up, if you want to call it, if you fail, you can always restart. So you don't have to, you know what I mean? That's how you learn. So you can start over again. I do want to mention that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think Dr. Gladys, that's one of the things that entrepreneurs always tell us is that you're not going to make it the first time. I don't know what the percentage is, Miss Kim, but the percentage of businesses that fail within their first 3 years of them starting, and people keep picking themselves up and keep going. You hear young people telling you, I applied for 100 internships before I managed to land one, within the space of 2 months. You have to keep going, and that's something that's so important. Forget about the embarrassment or the humiliation that you think you may face. It's still okay. It's still okay for as long as you're physically okay, you're mentally okay. Sometimes you're mentally not so you're not as okay as you could be, but it's okay. You can still keep going. And I think failure is something that we have to accept as being something that's part of life, and it will not always be perfect. It doesn't mean that you can't show up. Miss Kim?
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. I think one of the tools that I apply, the effective measures that I do is I reward myself. So there are tasks, there are things that we have to do, like simply a silly thing I mentioned, like brushing my teeth, but it's not negotiable. It's something you have to do. You like it or not, you've got to wake up, brush your teeth, make your bed. So what I do now when I have the other bigger task, something like these were my goals for the week. If I tick every box, Friday evening, I have a date with my glass of wine. Because I ticked all the boxes. And if I don't tick them, no reward for me. I don't get the gratification to do things that I love doing. And that keeps me with this something, there's a reward. I like having a reward. So it is so important. It doesn't matter how little it is. It can even be, actually, I hardly drink as much as I talk about it. I reward myself with watching a movie. Friday night or Saturday night, no laptop, And some days it's a no screen day. That's when I can go for my 1 hour nice fun walk with my dogs. And I'll come and do things that I love. I'll do my garden and I will watch my movie. So having those little treats, I would also want to remind the setting goals thing, that thing of you've set it and you've written them down. The fact that you keep revisiting that this is July. July is left with 10 days. This is, now we're getting to, we are mid-year. I was supposed to have done this within the first quarter. I'm getting to the second phase of the year. Soon it's going to be December. You know, those become wake-up calls, and that's where vision board comes in. And especially if you do the vision board and paste it on a wall that you can't avoid next to your bed, because you still go to bed. It's the first thing you see when you go to bed. It's the first thing that you see when you wake up. That thing sticks here and is so powerful. When you keep on seeing that jet, you're going to get that jet. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you, Miss Kim. Setting your goals and having your vision board. I don't have a vision board, by the way. It's not something that I've never done it before. I watched my daughter a few months ago. So a few months ago, sitting there. The room was an absolute mess. There was magazines all over the place. She was asking for my. I love magazines. I don't buy them anymore, but I still have those that I really love that I don't want to throw away. And she was cutting them up and doing things. And I just wondered at the whole process. But one of these days, Miss Kim is giving me that side eye. One of these days, I'm going to actually join, I hope, a group of women. I had a friend at the beginning of the year who said, please, let's do vision boards. And I kind of just looked at her. It didn't happen. We wanted to get it done. But I think the more you talk about it, it sounds like a fun thing to do as well. But in terms of goals, setting your goals, and then now breaking those goals down into tasks that happen on a weekly basis and daily, ticking those boxes, it's so important. And it feels so good to be able to tick boxes. But I love what you said about rewarding yourself. It's something that we don't necessarily think about, especially as women. I don't know why, but we really need to get into the habit of rewarding ourselves. And it means different things. For some of us, it could mean having that glass of wine, going to a movie. For others, it could be saving up to go on a nice holiday, somewhere different, somewhere nice, or buying yourself something really pretty that you've been wanting. Okay, so I've kind of procrastinated a little bit today. We're left with 4 minutes. I really wanted to go to that question. So let me read it again. And let's try. And it's from somebody called Farhia Noor. She sent this question to us last week. I'm hoping that we all had time to reflect on it. So Farhia is asking, in an African context, how does community expectation or cultural pressure contribute to procrastination? How does community expectation or cultural pressure contribute to procrastination? Sometimes we delay not because we're lazy, but because we fear judgment or rejection from those around us. How do we break free from this? So Farias wants us to respond to this. She says, in an African context, but it can happen anywhere because all of us, wherever we're sitting in this world, there are cultural expectations. There are things that you are, by virtue of being in a certain group of people or being raised amongst a certain group of people, there are cultural norms and habits that we follow. So we can apply her question anywhere, but hers is specific to the African context. Ms. Kim, do you want to take a stab at this, simply because you previously also gave us an example of something that's a cultural expectation? In fact, you gave a brilliant example. Maybe, hopefully, she was listening and maybe has been answered, where you said you spoke about, burying your mother virtually and you haven't yet been home to fulfill the cultural requirements, I'll call them. And she says it's not procrastination or laziness. And you've labeled it procrastination. But her question is, how do we break free from this? Are you breaking free from cultural expectations, Ms. Kim? because you have not yet fulfilled what you were expected or required to do?
In a big way, yes. They're actually, my case could be a little bit different in the sense that maybe one, I have a very good relationship with my sort of my distant relatives who really complain about this. And maybe because education also has a role to play. They're educated and they're Christians. So they could apply that, be a little bit subtle. Every time we talk and they ask, but when are you coming? But I've had some of them have sentiments on, this is why you're not getting blessed. Which you ask me, if you ask me, I'm so blessed. I'm blessed beyond measure. I don't know, just because I had flu last week, then you want to allude, that's why. I'm getting flu because I didn't go to my mom's graveyard. And also, I love respecting our African culture, but not everything within our African culture is working today, right? So sometimes is that we drag because we have a lot of excuses to sugarcoat it. And I'll talk to on what she spoke about. I'll talk about black tax. I hope Dr. Gladys, you know what is black tax? Like it's the entire community bespoke the village. The minute you get a job, I see my daughter calls it sister tax. She expects her elder sister to give her some money. Yeah, she calls it sister's tax. That's the sister owes her some money from her salary. Of course, she does it in a joking way. I don't think she seriously has serious expectations, but there's some beauty in that we are a community and we take care of each other. But quite often that gets abused, where then you find somebody else would decide not to sit and not to do anything, chill, decide to be lazy because my son has a big job in the city and he should take care of us. So those are moments that then, of course, we have the whole marriage thing, which is another kind of worms to open. Different cultures have different expectations. So sometimes you might find, because within the dowry procession, it is so lengthy or it's so expensive. So you procrastinate doing it because of the cultural expectations. So some of these things, they hinder progress. So for me, the way of addressing it, I would still go back to my favorite skills, soft skills. It all boils down to communication. If my aunties keep calling on when are you coming home and I bully them, like, don't bother me, this is my mom, I've made peace with it, I don't believe in you guys what you believe in, I don't need to go to my mom's graveside for me to be blessed. You've opened a can of worms. But with humility, when you keep on explaining, I understand I'm supposed to support you as my sibling, as my child, as this is not, but this is my financial situation. I understand I should marry you and pay the dowry, but this is how I am doing. I'm tied up on a job that I work 24/7. Because remember, a lot of these cultural norms, when they were set up, that's 100, 200 years ago, that life was very different. There was no time factor. It didn't matter what time you come. We didn't say that I'm expecting you at 7. No, I'm coming in the morning. Or I'm coming next week. There wasn't like I'm coming on Monday or Tuesday. No, I'm coming next week. I'm coming next season. And a season can be 3 months. I'll come during the harvesting time. And if it doesn't rain, so there's no harvest. So I can even procrastinate and come another season, right? But things have changed that we don't even say we're meeting on Monday. We say we're meeting on Monday at 7. Because there are so many other external factors that are affecting that. So you also need to understand, we don't get onto that progression with time and limitations at the same pace. My auntie in the village will not understand. How busy can you be to come and pay your rights? So it's my job to explain it to her to a level she can understand. And some of them can be very, like, I find my kids make fun of our cultural way of naming. Their firstborn, if it's a girl, should be my name or their husband's mom. But they don't get it. What do you mean? Why should I name you? So how can I blame them when they've not grown up within their cultural context? They've not grown up sitting with my mom every other day. I've raised them in a foreign country that has different cultural beliefs. So all these, the migrations we've adapted as Africans, sometimes just leaving the village and coming to the city, you're not in touch. Sometimes we're not even ignorant. We don't know. Some of these cultural norms, we do not know them. And I find it a little bit embarrassing, but it's a medication that we need. But there's a lot of that, our culture, that does not really work right now. How we break it down and make sure the other generation that raised us gets to understand is the ingredients that we need to cook nicely and present to them. I think that's my submission for thesis. That's my thesis, Dr. Gladys.
Thank you. Dr. Gladys, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I would. I know that it referencing African culture, but we have cultures all over the world. And one thing I want to say is that one thing you pointed out was time. And I noticed that here, like, in America, that they say, Black people's time, that they're always late. How I come out of that is that I show up who I am. For example, students don't know me to be late to class. I'm always on time. I mean, if I'm late, it has to be something going on. I don't know. But what I'm saying, I don't have that reputation. I am. That's how I separate myself from that culture. That's not me. I'm not a late person. So my expectation is that you're supposed to be on time. And my thing is, you're going to be at a deficit if you are constantly late, because I'm not going to go over information that you missed because you're following the culture of being late. That means you missed out on something very valuable. You could have missed out on gaining an extra 5 points towards your exam. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how I do. I show up is. So I remove myself from that. And believe it or not, I've heard things like that, but it means absolutely nothing to me, because if that class starts at 8:30 a.m., that's what time you're supposed to be there. Now, I understand that people have situations where they may have encountered, traffic or what have you, but I'm talking about repeat offenders. There are actually individuals that really believe that, oh, we're just naturally late. It's no big thing. Okay, well, that's going to reflect in your grade. So that's the way I handle it. I show up the way you're supposed to on time. So that's my expectation for you. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Dr. Gladys, sorry. Ms. Paula is in my mind. Dr. Gladys.
Paula today.
Yeah. I have a very different take on that. I think, and different in the sense that I don't buy this, it's African time. We've been labeled that way, right? And here we are. Dr. Gladys is somebody who shows up on time every single time, unless there's a problem. I know my father was one who was a stick. He hated being late for anything. It just did not happen. And so, I don't agree that there is such a thing as African time. I think we're using it as an excuse. We have a lot of people who show up on time. We have a lot of people who don't. But I just refuse. I refuse to give that and to give into that. But thank you both for your explanations. I'm hoping that Farhia is listening, and I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. But I'm in agreement with Ms. Kim. One of the things that we need to start doing is communicating better. And there must be somebody within your community, within your culture, within your family that you can start talking to about some of these things. And once you start talking about it and it gets to a wider audience, then you're able to perhaps begin to address it, because it's possibly something that's not serving you anymore. And I believe culture is dynamic, and anything that we hide using as an excuse that is not serving us or is detrimental to our children, to the girl child, to the boy child, within the African context, we have to talk about it, and we have to agree that it's time to move forward. And we can't keep doing it just because our great-grandparents did it. And so starting to talk about some of these things is the way you address it, because times are changing. So I wish you well. I hope that whatever it is that you are dealing with at this time, and the reason you posed this question to us, is something that you're going to be able to um, address in a way that's not going to be difficult, because I can also understand, the fear of talking to your elders about something that they believe so greatly in, and you just cannot, so you keep delaying it. So wishing you all the best, and I'm hoping that you will come back and maybe one of these days join us for a conversation around culture and some of the things that we really have to start looking at in terms of changing for the better, because it's no longer serving us. So we are now 10 minutes past the time that we're supposed to stop. This has been such a good conversation. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the process of preparing for it, as I always do every Sunday. It's a joy. This one was a bit different because I learned things that I really didn't know before, and how procrastination can actually be, in some instances, detrimental to one's health. And it's not just a simple thing of refusing to do something or delaying to do something. So we've all, I believe, learned something today. I'd like to thank everyone who's joined us for this conversation, and for those who will be listening to it, hopefully. Ms. Kim has advised that it's streaming on 17 platforms. I'm really glad she didn't ask me to state what they are, because I didn't even know there were 17 platforms that could be streamed on. That's a bit scary, but yes, we were on 17 platforms. So hopefully you'll find us somewhere and find good reason to join our next podcast next week, Sunday. We are the Happiness Tribe, and really we want to be able to share the joy that we have in our lives and try and address some of the challenges that we face as individuals from all walks of life. So, and finally, a big thank you to our sponsor. We really appreciate the opportunity that you're giving us, OneStream. And I'm going to pass it on now to Dr. Gladys and then Miss Kim to close it up for us for today. Thank you, everyone. Take good care.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I want to leave you with this. If you are struggling on that journey to trying to ward off procrastination, the first thing I want to say is, reflect, so think about what did you accomplish today? And it could be something really small. Don't expect anything huge. Start with small steps. The next thing is celebrate, so what's one thing that you did well? Ask yourself, what's one little small thing that you did well? And that's an accomplishment. And then what you do is you prepare yourself for tomorrow. So you just take a look at tomorrow. And like I said, in very small steps. So again, I want to thank you for joining us, and I'm going to pass the mic to Miss Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Gladys. Miss Kim, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, my lovely, lovely colleagues. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to our listeners. I'm going to close by opening a can of worms. And my kind of worms is this something like African time. I would love to suggest that we have a podcast on this, because I strongly believe it's something that is embedded, this whole thing of there's something that is this African time. It's sacred. It has its soul. It has a meaning. It's very deep, and we need to celebrate it. That does not mean that we excuse tardiness. No. I could only simplify because we're out of time. This means we have seasons, we have communities, we have respect, especially where I live. I live in a country that has very deep, strong culture that is very respectful. It doesn't matter what time you show up, you get to the grocery store, don't ask where is salt before you say hello to the attendants. I wouldn't be surprised. This is the only country that does that. But it's something I love. It signifies the spirit of Ubuntu. We greet in supermarkets. We stop and say hello. And we can go, oh yes, I've seen the Tanzanian culture. We don't just, in Tanzania, it's not just hello. It is, how are the children? And this is a business. This is in an office. We don't know each other. We're here to do business, but we don't start meetings before we greet. In most parts of the continent, we don't even start meetings before we greet 100 people. Everybody, what's your name? Say hello. Next, prayers. So that can take us, what was supposed to be done, the meeting was supposed to be 2 hours, it can go to 6 hours. I have so much respect for some of the African norms, the culture. And I would want to have this conversation where strongly, it's something that I would want us to keep on advocating for. That is losing ourselves just because the colonialism came up with breakfast is served at 7. No, we go with the spirit, we go with the rhythm, we go with the season. That's why we don't interrupt elders when they're talking. And those are things we've learned. If I have to go to my grandmother's house, I go when I have nothing else I'm doing that day. Because I'm not going to, if she decides we're going to slaughter a goat, that's what's going to be done. And there will be a feast. We move with the spirit. There's a rhythm to it. Thank you. That's my controversy. I kind of want. So today, it's deep. I'd like us to discuss it one of these days. But it's been super awesome. We've learned a lot. And we would love you to please put your comments. If there's something you still feel I didn't get that right, we love, some of us are very seasoned strategists. You can hear Dr. Gladys shares a lot of brilliance. Miss Paula has branded Miss Yodit as the wisest person that ever lived. So you can imagine there's a lot from where she gave us, where she checked that there's a lot left there. And you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, or you have a burning topic that you'd like us to discuss, we are happy. Please bring it on. Please note, we are happy as well to discuss with any brand partners that would be out there and would want to partner with us and we promote their product. We also love listening to people who are looking for jobs, promoting a product. If you don't have capital, we come up with many different ways of working together. This is a community that is supposed to ensure we support each other in whichever way we can. So have a lovely evening, have a lovely day wherever you're joining us from, and a pleasant week. See you, same place, same time. Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.